Hey man, silence is a strange weapon. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't throw a tantrum or storm out. It simply exists, like a quiet storm that says everything without saying a word. And here's the twist. Most men never see coming when you go silent. Not out of spite, not to manipulate, but because you're protecting your peace and standing in your power. It hurts her more than anything you could have said. It pierces deeper than any argument, colder than any insult, more haunting than any goodbye. Because silence isn't the absence of emotion, it's the announcement of self-control. And when a man goes quiet, especially after giving her his love, energy, and consistency, that silence echoes louder than any scream. It makes her question herself in ways your words never could. It makes her wonder, replay, spiral. And that right there is the beginning of the breakdown she never expected. You see, women are used to being pursued. They're used to the apologies, the explanations, the men who try to reason with their chaos, and the endless conversations that come after the drama. They're conditioned to believe that no matter what happens, you'll talk, that you'll explain, that you'll try to fix things because you care. So when you don't, when you stop giving her that emotional reassurance, when you stop validating her behavior, when you no longer try to convince her that she's worth it, you're breaking her psychological rhythm. Suddenly, the power dynamic flips. Suddenly, she's the one who can't sleep, because your silence becomes the mirror she can't look away from. It reflects back all the things she tried to bury, her guilt, her mistakes, the games she played. And now that you're no longer reacting, she has to face herself. Don't underestimate how much that silence cuts her. She may pretend she's fine. She might post selfies and quotes and pretend she's living her best life. But deep down, that silence eats at her. Why? Because it creates space. And in that space, all her suppressed emotions rush in like a flood. Regret, shame, confusion, the what-ifs, and maybe I went too far, start to creep in. Your silence forces her to feel everything she avoided while you were always available, always explaining, always emotionally present. And now that you're gone, she's stuck in the wreckage of her own choices. It's the kind of pain that doesn't scream, it just lingers, quietly wrecking her from the inside out. And the cruel irony, she might have laughed when you walked away, but it's your silence that's breaking her. Here's the part most men don't understand. When a woman pushes a good man away, she expects a fight. She expects drama. She expects you to beg, to plead, to prove yourself. That's how most men react. But when you don't play that game, when you withdraw with calmness, grace, and zero emotional chaos, it terrifies her. Because it means she no longer has access to your mind. She can't predict your next move. She can't read your energy. She can't feel your warmth or even your anger. She's locked out. And suddenly, you're a mystery again. That same mystery that made her obsessed with you in the beginning now becomes her personal hell. Because it's no longer a game, it's a consequence. And it's one she never thought she'd have to face. She checks her phone more than she admits. Scrolls through your old messages. Replays your voice notes, wonders if she misread everything. She tries to pretend you're just another guy, another chapter. But deep down, your silence is louder than any memory she has. Why? Because it shows her you're actually done. That you didn't just walk away physically, you disconnected emotionally. And women know that once a man detaches emotionally, it's game over. You're not coming back to save her from her own mess. You're not swooping in to rescue her from the loneliness she created. And here's the twist that haunts her the most. You were never the problem. You were the stability she didn't appreciate, the man she confused with predictability, the peace she mistook for boredom. And now that you're gone, that realization is cutting deeper than she knows how to admit. She won't say it out loud. Her pride won't let her, but her silence in response to yours isn't strength, it's shock. She didn't expect you to disappear from her emotional map so cleanly, so completely. She's scanning her entire history with you, searching for the moment she lost you for good. She'll ask herself, was it that last text I ignored? That final argument I started? That cold look I gave when he tried to open up? She's replaying every moment like a crime scene, trying to trace the moment you emotionally died in her world. But here's the truth. It wasn't one moment, it was the accumulation, the 1,000 little dismissals, the times she acted indifferent when you showed up. The moment she confused your presence for permanence, And now that silence is all she hears, it's like trying to breathe underwater. There's no air left to cling to. You gave her chances more than you probably should have. You tried to talk it out, tried to understand her chaos, tried to meet her in her emotional language. And what did she do? She mocked your vulnerability, dismissed your logic, weaponized your love. And now that you've turned off the faucet of attention, she's thirsty, dying for the emotional water she once swam in but never appreciated. Women don't always understand value in the moment. They understand value in absence. It's only when the silence stretches into days, weeks, months, and you don't return, that they begin to panic. Because silence is a statement, and what it's saying is simple. You no longer have access to me, and that more than any words is what breaks her down from the inside. She'll start projecting, telling her friends lies like, he was never really serious, or he probably moved on fast. But you know the truth? You were solid, you showed up, you cared, you chose her. And that's what haunts her. Because deep down, she knows she ruined something real. Not because you shouted, not because you left in a blaze of glory, but because you left with dignity. Your silence screams that you won't tolerate emotional chaos anymore, that you've outgrown the drama, that you're no longer the boy she could manipulate, but the man she'll never touch again. And that realization doesn't show up in a dramatic movie scene. It shows up at 2 a.m. when she's alone, staring at her screen, thinking, I really messed this up. And here's the psychological trap she walks into without knowing. The more silent you are, the louder her emotions become. She tries to replace you, maybe even sleeps with someone else, thinking it'll numb the ache, but it doesn't, because it was never just about the physical, it was about how you made her feel. The emotional stability, the masculine calm, the way you saw through her walls, but still stayed. And now that you're gone, every other man feels like noise. They talk too much, they chase too hard, they don't hold frame like you did. And eventually, she stops comparing them to you, because no one even comes close. Your silence didn't just remove your presence, it removed the standard. And once a woman experiences that kind of energy, everything else feels cheap. But the beautiful part? You didn't have to do anything extreme to teach her this lesson. You didn't have to be toxic. You didn't need to manipulate. All you had to do was withdraw your energy. That's the power of a high-value man. When you stop feeding someone emotionally, they either rise up or fall apart. And she fell apart, quietly, behind the scenes, while pretending everything is fine, but inside, your absence is like a ticking clock. She's waiting, hoping, wondering. And every second that passes without a message, without a call, without you trying to fix things, she realizes the brutal truth. She lost a man who was never hers to begin with. He was only ever choosing her. And now that he's not, she finally understands just how much she needed that choice. She may even lash out, say things through mutual friends like, he's being immature, or he ghosted me for no reason. But deep down, she knows exactly why you disappeared. She knows she broke the rhythm of something sacred, and now she's projecting her guilt, spinning her own narrative, because accepting the truth would mean accepting her role in her own heartbreak. And here's where most men mess up. They break the silence too soon. They respond to the bait. They try to explain themselves one more time. Don't do it, brother. Your silence is not weakness, it's power. It's the clearest boundary you've ever drawn. And the moment you let her pull you back into the cycle, you tell her that your peace is negotiable, but it's not anymore. You've upgraded your standards, and silence was the doorway to that new level. There's something primal about the way women respond to masculine detachment. It's not the cold, heartless indifference of a man who never cared. No, it's the measured calm of a man who once cared deeply and now doesn't at all. That transition shakes her foundation, because it reveals something she never expected to see, that she never had control. She just had access, and once she misused that access, it was revoked. Not with drama, not with begging, but with silence. You didn't just walk away, you disappeared into your purpose, into your growth, into the man you were always becoming, and now she's standing there, holding the memories, the could-have-beens, the empty apologies she never got to give. And that's what's breaking her. Not your words, but your absence. She's scanning your socials, noticing your glow up. You're quieter, sharper, more focused. Maybe you're in the gym more, posting less, smiling differently. You look like a man who's no longer wounded, but wiser. And it drives her insane. Because in her world, love meant chaos. Love meant talking things to death. Love meant fighting to prove you cared. But your silence rewrote that story. Your silence told her that peace is power, that real men don't fight for attention, they simply remove theirs. And now she's in the emotional wasteland she created, watching you thrive in the kingdom she was once invited into. And that image, that vision of you leveling up without her, it's not just painful, it's soul-crushing, because it confirms the one thing she was trying to avoid. You were the prize all along. The pain she's feeling now is a pain only a man of value can cause, not because you intended to hurt her, but because your energy was valuable enough to miss. You were an anchor, a grounding force, a man she could count on until she couldn't. And now every guy she meets feels like a downgrade, not because they're bad, but because they're not you. They don't have your emotional gravity, your calm dominance, your unshakable presence, and your silence. That was the final act, the last page. The one thing she can't rewrite, it's permanent. And the permanence of that silence is what's unraveling her now. Because for the first time, she's feeling a kind of rejection that's not loud, but absolute. An absolute rejection from a man like you. That leaves a scar. So if you're reading this in the middle of silence, don't break it. Don't send the message. Don't reply to the bait. Let her sit in it. Let her feel the storm she created. Because this isn't about punishment, it's about clarity. You gave her your presence. She couldn't handle it. Now, she gets to experience your absence. And in that void, she will either grow or she will crumble. But that's not your responsibility anymore. You've moved forward, you've evolved, and your silence, that was the first step in finally becoming the man who no longer asks for love, but commands it. And she'll remember that silence forever. Not because it was loud, but because it was final. She might post pictures now, smiling, partying, surrounded by attention. It'll look like she's moved on, like your silence didn't affect her at all. But don't be fooled, brother. That's the cover-up. That's the panic in disguise. Because silence leaves a gap, and most women will try to fill that gap as fast as possible. Not with healing, not with growth, but with noise. Distractions. Cheap dopamine hits. They'll tell themselves they're fine, that they're the prize, that you're the one who lost. But deep down, when the lights go out and the audience is gone, the pain creeps in. She hears the silence again, and it whispers a brutal truth. He's not coming back. And that realization doesn't just sting, it shatters. You see, silence is surgical. It cuts deep and clean, without the mess of words. That's why it hurts more than any argument ever could. When a man says nothing, it forces a woman to face everything she tried to avoid. Her patterns, her sabotage, her games, and most importantly, her miscalculation. Because she thought she could push you, pull you, test you, and you'd still orbit around her. But you didn't. You vanished. And not into another woman. Into yourself. Into your mission. Into your self-respect. That's what's hurting her most. Not that she lost a man, but that she lost a man who actually knew his worth. And now, in the silence, she has to live with that mirror. There's a strange irony to all of this. When you were available, present, emotionally generous, she didn't see you. Not truly. You were familiar, consistent, maybe even boring to her chaotic nervous system. But now that you're quiet, now that your energy is locked away, you've become mysterious, valuable, rare. Women are attracted to mystery, but they rarely handle the cost of it. Because mystery doesn't always tease, sometimes it disappears. And when it does, it leaves a haunting question. What could have been? That question echoes louder than any apology ever will, and it will chase her for far longer than she expected. Because men like you aren't forgotten. You're etched into the soul. She may never tell you she regrets it. She may never reach out again. But in her heart, there will always be a room with your name on it. A room filled with unanswered text she never sent. With, "I'm sorry," sitting at the edge of her throat. With late night thoughts where she wonders what would have happened if she had just appreciated you when you were there. But now you're not. And the silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the absence of hope. That's what truly breaks her. Not that you left, but that you left without a word. Without begging, without fighting, without giving her another chance to play the same game. And in that quiet departure, you told her the one thing she never wanted to hear: you're done. And while she's sitting in that regret, you're building, you're rising. You've turned your pain into power, your silence into sovereignty. You don't chase, you attract. You don't explain, you embody. You don't fight for love. You walk in such truth that the right ones align without effort. That's what she missed. Not just a boyfriend or a partner, but a king. A man who didn't need her validation because he had already validated himself. And that, above all else, is what drives her mad, because she thought love was noise, but you showed her it was peace. She thought love was attention, but you taught her it was presence. And now she sits in the void of your silence, realizing she fumbled a man she'll never replace. There's a strange shift that happens over time. While she continues performing for attention, posting for validation, and hoping you notice her from the sidelines, you're evolving into something entirely different. A version of yourself that's no longer tethered to old wounds, no longer asking why she changed, no longer seeking closure, because your silence wasn't just a withdrawal from her, it was a return to yourself. And as you become more focused, more grounded, more at peace, she feels it like a wave she can't swim against. Every day that passes without a word from you makes her feel smaller in the story. Once, she thought she was the main character. Now she realizes she was just a chapter in your legend. Silence has done something that explanations never could. It taught her that some men mean it when they walk away. That not every man will stay on the hook, waiting for her to figure it out. That not every man will tolerate being plan B while she explores her options. And that realization, that's what cuts her deepest, because women often think they have more time than they do. They think they can circle back, but not this time. You're not an option, you're not a maybe. You're a man who gave her something real and then gave her nothing. And in that contrast, she's haunted. Because while she's still searching for you and everyone else, you've made peace with never needing to search for her again. Eventually, she'll try to come back, not directly maybe, but through little signs, a like, a comment, a random story post that seems oddly targeted. And it'll be tempting, because part of you will remember the good moments, but you won't answer, not out of spite, but out of growth. You'll realize that her attention now is meaningless, because it's not love, it's insecurity, it's not connection, it's curiosity. She wants to know if she still has access to you, but you already closed the door, silently, and what she's feeling isn't just loss, it's the cold, undeniable truth that she never really had you the way she thought, because what you gave her was never hers to waste. The man you are now wouldn't even recognize the boy who stayed too long, loved too hard, and begged for crumbs. You've become something else, not bitter, but better, not closed, but guarded. You love differently now, smarter, slower, with discernment. And the silence that started as a survival mechanism, it became your language of power. You don't need to shout, you don't need to chase, you only need to choose. And when you do speak again, it won't be to convince anyone of your worth. It'll be to connect with someone who already sees it. And she'll watch from the sidelines, realizing too late that your silence was never meant to hurt her. It was meant to free you. So let her feel the ache. Let her sit with the silence. Let her wrestle with the reality that she pushed away the very thing she now craves. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to keep walking. Head high, heart full, soul intact. Because she is hurting more than you think. But not because you were cruel. Because you were rare. And now, she knows she'll never find that rare energy again. The silence she once mocked has become the loudest lesson of her life. And you don't need to say a word, because your peace speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Let that be the final message, one she'll never stop hearing.